A recent Newsweek article said that 84% of people have never updated their router before, and that's exactly what hackers are counting on. If you've never updated your router before, you're leaving your entire home network at risk. Usually what happens is people buy their router, they set it up, and then they put it in the corner and they never think about it again. To prove my point, here's a perfect test. Have you ever updated your router's firmware before? When I talk about updating your router, I'm talking about updating its firmware. And its firmware is the actual software that the device uses to operate. So it's basically the software that's inside of this router device that gets it to turn on when you want it to turn on, to broadcast its Wi-Fi networks. To do everything that it does, it has firmware telling it how to do that. In a sense, your router is no different than your cell phone. You frequently get operating system updates for your phone, and that's exactly what's happening with your router with its firmware updates. The firmware is essentially just the operating system for your router. So what does updating your router's firmware do, and what are the benefits of it? Well, there are two main components here. The first is that router updates can provide security fixes for your router. For example, after the router has been released to the public, it may be found that there are security vulnerabilities or security bugs in the software of your router. And what happens is when these firmware upgrades get issued, these firmware updates fix these security holes in the device, so that way they're no longer insecure. The other piece of this involves improvements for your router's performance. So during the time that you own your router, there will be new features that are rolled out for the router. There will be new ways for the router to operate more effectively and more efficiently. And in order to take advantage of those new features or those improvements, you need to update the firmware that's on the router itself. Again, going back to your cell phone analogy, if there are new emojis that are rolled out or new features for your iPhone, in order to take advantage of those, you need to update your operating system, and the same principle applies here. So when you're updating your router's firmware, you're making it more secure from hackers and people that want to get access to your devices. And you're also improving the performance of your router because of the improvements that are made to the code and the new features that are rolled out for it. The good news here is it's really easy to update your router's firmware. So let's quickly walk through the general steps you need to follow in order to do this. So I'll be showing you these steps on my laptop. I have a TP-Link router, but if you have a router that's made from a different manufacturer, the steps for updating your router's firmware should be basically the same. The first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you're connected to the Wi-Fi network of the router that you want to update. So here in my Wi-Fi settings, I'm automatically connected to this Wi-Fi network already, so I'm all set. The next step here is to open up a web browser. In order to find out where you need to go to access your router settings, what you can do is look at your actual router. On the device itself, it will have an informational sticker that will give a location where you can access your router settings. Alternatively, you can put in the IP address of your router. So although I'm given a location here that looks like a web address, I know that my IP address of my router is 192.168.0.1, so I'll enter that in here. At this point, you need to enter the password for your router settings. If you've never updated your router or accessed its settings before, you'll need to use the default password for your router. If you're not sure what this is, if it's not listed on the informational sticker on your router, what you can do is you can go online and you can find out what that default username and password is, or your router might make you set one up if it's the first time you're accessing your router settings. If you need to log in with your default password, it's very common that the password is either admin or password. But again, this will be in the user manual, or you can look it up online. I've previously changed the password for my router settings, so I'll put that in here, and this will take us to our settings homepage. So I'll log in. Here, when you get to the homepage of your router settings, there are a few different things that can happen. First and foremost, if you have a firmware update that's available, you might receive a pop-up saying you can update your router's firmware. That makes it really easy because you just need to click on that notification. Alternatively, here in the upper right, for example, for me it says update with a red dot. So if I click this, it's telling me right here I have an online update for my router's firmware. Alternatively, if you don't have any of these options available to you, you might be able to find firmware update under either the administration tab or the systems tab, or you might even have a notifications tab that you can look at, which will give you the option to update your firmware. The bottom line is the manufacturer for your router wants to make it really easy for you to update their products. So it should be pretty obvious for you how to upgrade your router's firmware. Let me know in the comments section if you have any problems or you can't find it, and then what the make and model of your router is, but it should be pretty straightforward for you. So in this case, I want to update my router's firmware. I just select update. It will take about 3 minutes and your router will reboot. Update now. Sure, let's update. And here it goes through the process of updating my router's firmware, and this is all I have to do. Once the firmware has completed, you'll get a notification saying that the firmware updated successfully and you should be good to go. Just select connected here. And now you're all set. You're back to your router's login page and your firmware is updated. If you have a newer router, for example, one of these mesh Wi-Fi nodes, it might be even easier to update your router's firmware. The reason for this is that many manufacturers have applications that you can use to manage their devices. So for example, with this TP-Link mesh device, I can manage it with the TP-Link Deco app, which I've downloaded for my phone. So here, if I go into the Deco app, I can see right here on the homepage of my settings, the nodes that make up my mesh Wi-Fi network. And if I want to check to see if there are firmware updates available for these devices, what I can do is down here in the right-hand corner, I can select more. And from here, what I'm doing is I'm scrolling down and I'm looking for something that says system. So look for the system header, and it's pretty self-explanatory from here. I go to Update Deco, and it's telling me right here that my device is already updated and the firmware is the latest version that's available. Another thing I want to call attention to is up here at the top of the screen, it says Auto Update. Let's go into there. You can see that Auto Update is enabled, and I would recommend this for anyone that has this option available to them. What this basically means is every time there's a firmware release for your router will automatically install it and automatically update its firmware, and you don't have to take any action. This is the easiest way to take care of security updates and performance improvements for your router. It just might not be available for everybody, so check to make sure if auto update's available. Now let's run through some quick common scenarios that you might have experienced in running through this exercise. The first is that if you're renting your router from your internet service provider, chances are you don't have the option of manually updating your firmware because your internet service provider automatically does it for you. To be honest, this might be the one and only benefit of renting your router from your internet service provider. If you want to see what I mean by that, you can check out the previous video that I made on this topic. Otherwise, if your router has auto updates available for it, you want to make sure that's enabled on your router so you don't have to take any further action. But if you don't have auto updates as an option, what I recommend you do is every 4 months, every 6 months, set a reminder for yourself to go into your router settings, check if there are any firmware updates, and then install them if there's a new firmware release available. As you saw from this video, it takes only about 5 minutes to update your router's firmware, so it's well worth your time if you get improved performance and you're protecting all the devices on your home network as a result. Now, if you have a really old router and there still aren't firmware updates available for it, it might be because the manufacturer is no longer supporting the device. And if this is the case, you might want to look into replacing your router. I've previously made a video that details how to go into looking into if your router is supported or not, so I recommend you check that out if you think this is the case for you. After all, you don't want to be using a router that is no longer supported from the manufacturer, because if any security flaws are found for that router, the manufacturer isn't going to be providing any patches or fixes for the security flaws, and as a result, your home network is open for attackers to take advantage of those. Now that you have all the information you need, I strongly urge you to remove yourself from the 84% of people that have never updated their router's firmware. It only takes a few minutes, and all of your home network devices will benefit as a result of doing this. As always, thanks for checking out this episode from Network from Home, and we'll catch you on the next one.